Good morning, my beautiful crime family. And it's a nice Sunday morning. It looks like it's going to be a nice day out there. I've been hearing crows a kind, and I love that because they're my little family that I feed. And I've been doing that for what? Let's see, 8 years. And I've seen them grow and shrink. At one time, there was 15 of them. Then one year, there was three when they came back. This family here, if anybody knows crows, some do migrate and some do not. And this family migrates. And yeah, that one year only three came back. There's a lot of people that don't like crows. And I don't understand that. They're the smartest birds in the world, and people just like misunderstand them. And people think that they they eat like the corn and stuff. They don't. They're after the rodents. They're actually doing farmers a favor. Um, but yeah. Anyway, so my family is up and about, and I throw food up on the on the garage roof to keep it away from the dogs across the street, and they have a better chance at fighting off the squirrels. I feed them separately, except the red squirrels. Anyway, this is Once Upon a Crime Time, and I'm your host, Tommy Jude. And this is a segment that we have here that's called Java Time. So I hope your Java is strong and hot. And yeah, I got a few things here. I found I've seen this channel before. And why I didn't sub them back then, I don't know why, but I did sub them now. And this is a good video, and I'm gonna get to it. Boy, it was a really good show. Friday night with Andrew Myers. That was, if you haven't seen that, you can go back and look at that because that was a really good show with him. And he always brings that law aspect to the channel. Anyway, I'm gonna show this. What is it called? True Crime Time, I think, or something. Anyway, we'll get there here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, True Crime Time. And this is from 2 days ago. And this guy, I've seen a lot of people trying to explain things and stuff, but this guy is one of the better guys I've seen that just gets to the nuts and the bolts, and he just, I don't know, see what you think here, guys. Here we go.
Hey everybody, for tonight's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about the back and forth that has been going on between the defense and the prosecution in regards to the investigative genetic genealogy that the FBI utilized in their investigation into the Idaho 4 murders. The defense has really been pushing on the IgG topic for months now. Early on in the case, the prosecution was stating that they weren't going to be using any of the IgG evidence at trial. They didn't use any of that in obtaining the arrest warrant for Brian, and they didn't use it to get the warrant for his DNA. They're saying that the IgG investigation was simply a tip from the FBI that helped support the case overall in their follow-up and in identifying Brian Koberger. So essentially what they're saying is, on one side over here, the FBI was conducting their investigation, building the family tree, kind of looking into the DNA from the knife sheath, trying to figure out who the person could be and get a clue. And at the same time over here, the local police were continuing to look at video footage and try to kind of figure out the case at the same time. And so these two things eventually merge together, right? And you have their investigation and you have the FBI's investigation coming together. So the defense early on was requesting certain discovery around the family tree and things like that. And the prosecution was, at the beginning saying, oh, you don't need any of that. We're not going to be using it at trial. Well, there were some closed hearings, and then the defense was granted visibility into some of that discovery that they were requesting. Now, both sides agree that things like the family tree, anybody who was identified individually through that investigation, is obviously not going to be disclosed to the public. And so these recent court filings referencing some previous cases that got me thinking about the affidavit and some of the things that stood out to me early on in the case that just didn't feel normal. And now seeing these recent filings from the defense, it's got me thinking of another theory on what I think the defense might be going after with this pursuit of the IgG information. So remember earlier too, the defense was wanting to get the trial moved to another county, claiming that, the jury pool could be tainted and biased toward Brian. Well, now all of a sudden, what they're doing in these recent court filings is they're wanting to have more visibility on things. So it's almost like they lost that battle, and so now they're moving on to the next battle. And in this case, more visibility they feel is going to benefit them versus everything being under seal. So in my opinion, there is something here that they're going after specifically. It could be a couple of things, but I do think that there's a purpose behind.
Actually, I kind of think that they should have went open, attacked to be open to begin with, because he's innocent and believes in his innocence. There shouldn't be anything to hide. And, if LE did their work right and Bill Thompson is doing his work right, what the hell do they got to hide? Why is this all sneaky crap? You know what I mean? That's what it feels like to me. It's like, just put it out in the open. Crazy. Anyway.
Behind this. For example, if we look at this first filing here from the defense, it's the motion to unseal parts of IgG materials. So what they're saying here is they want to unseal more of the IgG investigation. They understand, though, that they're not going to be unsealing the family tree or any names. That's not what they're requesting here. They have the same concern about individuals on the family tree being identified. But what they do object to is the sealing of the rest of the information that has been disclosed. So they've found some sort of information there that they want the public to be able to see. They want it unsealed. They say there is simply no legitimate reason that the way the IgG procedures in the case took place should be shielded from the public. So it sounds to me like they're targeting some sort of violation here or breakdown in the investigation that was, maybe a violation of Brian's rights or a violation in the way the IgG data was used or the family tree and that information was obtained. Their next filing goes on to say something similar, and it says, this is the objection to the state's motion to close hearings. So there was a hearing scheduled for this week on May 14th that was rescheduled to the end of this month, but the prosecution was wanting that May 14th hearing to be closed. The defense is pushing back on that, and they're saying the process of sealing is being abused by the state and its law enforcement agents, including the FBI, to hide how discovery is being withheld in this case. So they're implying here that the FBI and law enforcement is hiding something, right? They're not saying that, there's a delay or something like that. They're saying that there's a clear violation of something happening here in the way the IgG data was used. And then they also are referencing here that if they don't get this unsealed, that would be a violation of Brian's rights in regards to a public trial. It's kind of two pieces here. It's one, we want this information to be unsealed, and if it's not, then that would be a violation of his right to a public trial. So they're wanting to shine a light onto something here that they know about that was disclosed to them in regards to the IgG investigation. So I do think that there is something here that the defense is going after where the FBI may have mishandled the IgG investigation in some way. Now, law enforcement does have documentation available that breaks down the guidelines in regards to how IgG data can be used and certain rules on how that evidence has to be handled throughout an investigation. Also, it outlines when IgG can be used. So, for example, they don't want to all of a sudden just take people's DNA and start running that through systems. That would be a violation of people's rights. So they use this type of investigation very sparingly, and it's typically unsolved violent crimes. So the Idaho 4 case would definitely meet that criteria as far as reasoning behind why they took this approach and utilized the DNA the way that they did. So another example, though, is investigative agencies have to identify themselves as law enforcement to the services that they're using, and they have to search profiles only in those GG services that provide explicit notice to their service users and the public that law enforcement may use their service sites to investigate crimes or to identify unidentified human remains. So these services that the law enforcement is using to investigate using the IgG data, they have to tell their other users that that could happen, and those people have to opt in. This also states multiple times that you cannot use the findings from an IgG investigation solely to arrest a suspect. You have to still have other supporting evidence, direct DNA matching to, the crime in some other way. You can't just use this to obtain an arrest warrant or to obtain a warrant for somebody's DNA. This is simply something that law enforcement is supposed to use as a lead. So, like I said at the beginning of the video, it wasn't an accident that the IgG part of the investigation was left out of the affidavit and left out of everything that they were using to obtain those warrants. They are very aware that they cannot use the IgG data for those reasons. However, if the defense is aware of something that law enforcement did that they shouldn't have done, it's not going to prove Brian's innocence, but it could get him one step closer to getting other evidence thrown out or not being allowed to be used by the prosecution. The thing that the defense has to really get around is that direct match of DNA from the knife sheath to Brian, right? So the warrant where they were allowed to obtain Brian's DNA directly and compare that to the knife sheath is really the nail in the coffin, in my opinion, for Brian. So that is something critical for them to try to either discredit or get inadmissible.
And when it comes to trial, and this is the way he's looking at it, is the trial, and that could be the nail in the coffin. I mean, remember the prosecution is going to be attacking too, and they're going to, like every case that we've ever watched, how it goes. And what's sad is other big cases, I felt that there was a lot of evidence against the person and persons, because there's more than one, and they got off. And this case scares me because I believe this man is innocent. And it could be that, which I hate to say it, but I inside the snap really bothers me. If it would have been anywhere else, it wouldn't have bothered me. But inside that snap is a perfect swab. Perfect for a swab. And that really, really, really bothers me. Because what did he do? Stick his finger in the in the snap? Something does, and there's no other DNA anywhere. None of his DNA anywhere, from his house to his office to his car. None of the victims' DNA is anywhere. There's just too much. And that's what bothers me about this case. So, but he's right. It can be the nail in the coffin if you're sitting on a jury, depending on what this judge allows into court on both sides.
Admissible in some way. So in order to do that, you have to get ahead of the case, right? You have to get earlier on in the investigation, and you have to find something that you can cut off that basically breaks down how they got to that point in their investigation. So there could be something again that they're aware of that the FBI did. So this next document is really interesting, and this is the one that led me back to the affidavit and that thing that I noticed early on in the case that just didn't sit right with me. But this is the defendant's response to the state's motion to limit testimony. The state was again requesting to limit testimony on this matter because they're claiming the IgG data is not going to be used in the trial. It wasn't used to obtain the warrant, and so they're kind of trying to, limit the pursuit of that. Well, the defense is coming back and they're, objecting to that. And what they're saying here is the state cites no authority for this claim. Mr. Koberger has the ability to challenge the probable cause affidavits in this matter that were used to procure warrants. So, like I said, they've got to get ahead of the warrants that obtained his DNA, and they've got to find a way to get around that. And so, what they're doing here is they're going to go back and they're going to challenge the affidavit. And if they can find anything early on in the case that broke down or that is a violation, that can hopefully lead them to a way to get that warrant for his DNA thrown out or excluded, that's good for them. And the reason I think of that is because these cases that they're referencing here. So if we look at the state versus Hosey, law enforcement was given a tip by an informant about a vehicle that was transporting drugs. And so law enforcement used that tip, i.e. IgG data, right, is a tip or a lead or an informant. So in this case, law enforcement, in this case that they're referencing here, had an informant who gave a tip to law enforcement, who then pulled somebody over, ended up searching the vehicle and found drugs, and that person was arrested. Well, what they did is they challenged the credibility of the informant. So same idea in this case. They wanted to get ahead of the probable cause. They had to stop the car initially. So if they can discredit that confidential informant, then they could potentially find a way to block, that first step that law enforcement took to, make contact with that person. So it feels like, they're referencing these past cases in a way that maybe they're trying to find something in the affidavit that violated Brian's rights in the initial way law enforcement identified him. So that brings us to the affidavit and what I wanted to tell you about that I think the defense might be targeting with some of this IgG investigation. So the very first part of the affidavit that actually mentions Brian Koberger is the part here where it says on November 25th, MPD asked area law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for white Hyundai Elantras in the area. Okay, so that was on the 25th. 4 days later, on November 29th, at approximately 12:28 in the morning, WSU police officer Daniel Tiengo queried white Elantras registered at WSU. So he's taking some sort of action here at 12:28 in the morning. 4 days after, the law enforcement asked everybody to be on a lookout for the white Elantra. So for whatever reason, for the first 4 days, he didn't think of doing this, right? So on the fourth day at 12:28, this officer decided to query for white Elantras at WSU. So as a result of that query, he located a 2015 Elantra with Pennsylvania plates registered to Brian Koberger, residing at 1630. So then, interestingly enough, it says that same day at approximately 12:58, WSU Officer Whitman was looking for white Elantras and located a 2015 Elantra at that same address. So it doesn't say, that Officer Tiengo called Officer Whitman and said, "Hey, I just ran this and here's the address. Go check it out." This was two independent things that just happened within 30 minutes of each other. Two different officers were pinging right on Brian Koberger. And this felt very weird to me early on when I read through the affidavit. This felt the timing here. Remember, it doesn't say when the FBI gave the tip to law enforcement on who Brian Koberger was. And this is the first reference of tying Brian Koberger to the white Elantra. So what they did is they found the vehicle, they ran it, Brian came up, they saw the description was the same as the eyewitness. And then from there, they claim they started pursuing Brian Koberger and his phone and the video and putting all of that together. But again, this day, this whole, the 4-day window, but before they actually, I would almost think that if on November 26th they released this alert, the very next day, officers would be, looking into these things. But for whatever reason, 4 days later, within a 30-minute window, we had 2 officers discovering Brian Kohberger. So it does make me wonder if there's a possibility that the FBI tipped off local law enforcement in a way, that ties in with the actual affidavit, and it's just being excluded. So we know that they're excluding the IgG piece on purpose. But if the defense can find a way to prove that the IgG data somehow caused law enforcement to be prejudiced against Brian.
See, that could be the dirty part right there. That could be bingo. And that could be exactly what Anne is. I like the way this guy reads these. He's very objective. I usually go to a couple other people because they're good at it. But I really like this guy. I think I'm going to start watching his take on things. Actually, I did have him subbed. I don't think he puts out many videos, is the only thing. But when it comes to these, I do like the way he reads these.
And that led to everything else downhill. Probably their best bet in regards to getting rid of the DNA evidence. They've got to find some sort of violation there where that evidence will be excluded. Because I don't think they're going to find any experts on their side that's going to discredit the actual DNA from the knife sheath matching Brian's DNA. So they've got to find a way to prove some sort of other violation. Thank you for watching True Crime Time.
Yeah, I could turn on my mic. It might help, right? Anyway, that's a awesome channel. I like it. So if you want to subscribe, if you like the way he reads things, go ahead and subscribe to him. I'll leave the link down below. Okay, Sunday morning. Yes. Okay, the next one. I'm going to break things up here a little bit. This is pretty crazy. This is one of the craziest stories I've heard in a while. Check this one out. It's funny, but it isn't. Yeah, you'll see.
And tonight, a story of survival you've really got to see to believe. A Texas woman says a snake fell from the sky, wrapped around her arm, and then tried biting her face. But that's not all. All of this is happening while a hawk swooped down and then tried grabbing the snake off of her arm. Fox 26's Matthew Seedorf meeting with that woman here tonight who says she is just thankful to be alive.
The hawk must have dropped the snake and then, oh my God. I mean, this is crazy.
I do this as therapy to kind of help me realize that this probably is never going to happen again.
A rare simultaneous snake and hawk attack cutting a Texas woman deep. Are you looking up now?
Oh, yeah, I'm constantly looking up.
Her arm now wrapped in healing, but emotionally, it's tough.
The nightmares are horrific. They're terrible.
Out in Silsbee, Texas, Peggy Jones had been mowing the lawn.
I was just riding along, minding my own business.
Out of the blue sky, a snake fell onto her arm.
Your instincts are just to sling it off. Then instead of slinging it off, he wrapped around my arm. Just wrapped around. And as I'm slinging, he's striking and striking. He's striking my glasses.
The snake over and over again, lunging towards Peggy's face.
And all you could see was this, it looked like a big wide mouth coming at your face.
After 4 tries, a hawk then ripping the snake away.
The hawk, I mean, his wings are just flapping and, you know, I can feel the wings on me. I don't really know. I can't say I know how it feels to die because I'm still alive, but I really think that I got really close.
She wasn't speaking English. She was hysterical.
Peggy's husband, Wendell, also outside, running over to help.
The first words I heard was snake fell out of the air. So I'm thinking, yes, you are hysterical.
I told him, I said, a snake just fell out of the air. He said, a snake did this to you. I said, no, it was a snake. And then the snake was trying to bite me on my face.
She was just screaming and crying and trying to talk, but I just couldn't understand anything she said.
I said, the hawk came down and he got the snake. He tried to get the snake and he scratched all over my arms and his talons were going into my arms and my arms are tore up.
I took that Dodge truck Hemi and I'm not going to tell you how fast I went through town, but we was flying.
Peggy now looking up, thanking her lucky stars she survived simultaneous attacks. I think you need a lottery ticket.
Yes.
This is crazy.
Yes. Yes.
Torn apart but alive with a new look on life.
In the blink of an eye and the snap of a finger, your life can change. And you don't know if it's going to be a hawk and a snake or a car wreck or whatever. I just love everybody and everything more. Even when I eat a piece of chocolate, it tastes so much better now, than it did.
Reporting from Hardin County, Texas, Matthew Seedorf, Fox 26 News.
That is one of the craziest stories I've heard in a long time. That's just wild. Can you imagine, like, it's too bad somebody didn't see it and film it, you know? Because, I mean, that's just crazy. Okay, we're getting to the part that I'm only going to play a little bit of this because I really cannot handle this. This is in the title I had pure heartbreak, and this is what this is. And yeah, I didn't really, I had to think about if I was going to do this on a Sunday morning, but I think it's important that it gets out there. So here.
Two Sundays ago, 10-year-old Sammy Toish took his own life at his home in Indiana. His dad found him, but it was too late. I want to welcome on right now Sam Toish. He is Sammy's father, also Xander Toish, Sammy's older brother. I can't tell you both enough how much I thank you for coming on, how sorry I am for your loss. This was just 11 days ago. I can't process what you guys are going through, but the best that you can.
10 years old, commits suicide.
If you can explain to us how you guys are doing, how the family's doing.
We're just trying to keep it together. The community outreach beyond just this community has kind of reached everywhere. We've kind of been leaning on that as our support. How do you make it through something like this? I don't know. I mean, it's different every day. It's different every second. And an enormous piece of our life's gone.
Xander, how are you?
I'm doing better. It's kind of hard to do it, but I've got the support from a bunch of people, got a bunch of hugs and stuff, and it's really helping.
I'm going to talk about that support because
I think that's probably enough for me on that one. The bullying, when is it going to stop? When are they going to make it stop? It isn't when is it going to stop. It's when are they going to make it stop? When a teacher sees somebody being bullied, they go to jail. You know what I mean? I mean, something needs to happen. They need to start treating, because it starts at home. It starts at home. And apparently they're not doing it at home. Throw them into juvie. 6 months out of crack or whatever. That's just 10-year-old kid commits suicide. You know, I shouldn't have ran that one. I shouldn't have ran that one. I had some shorts lined up, but I think that's good enough for me today, guys. I won't be doing a show tonight. My Timberwolves are in Game 7 against the world champions. They've taken them to Game 7, and you know, some people say it's the best team in the world, and my Wolves got them in Game 7, so I'm not going to miss that game. And I think it's at 7, so the time I always start my lives, or most of the time I start my lives. Don't forget, we got Daniel coming up this week on Friday, and you know, there'll be shows in between, of course. Yeah, I think isn't that does it get to you? Does it get to you like it gets to me? That something, I mean, they have to make it stop. They have to make it stop. And I got some other thoughts that have been bothering me too, and I'll get into that in another show. And it has to do with the fentanyl coming in the country and that kind of stuff. I'm going to be doing a show on that, and what I think, and people will probably scream at me on this one, but what I think should be done. Just because I know it's not going to stop. Anyway, I love you guys dearly. And on this Sunday, have a great day. And until next time, rock and roll.
on the music hall. So yeah, and also thank you Giselle and everyone else who's come up on this stage tonight and contributed to the show. So we'll play a little bit more and we're going to smash it. Thank you.